Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into what has to be the most consuming and frankly heartbreaking aviation mystery in history.
MH370.
Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. It vanished on March 8, 2014. A flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, 239 people on board.
And it kicked off the single most expensive yet, inconclusive aviation search ever.
It's a case just defined by its contradictions, isn't it?
It really is. You have this massive absence of definitive data, but at the same time, these extraordinary scientific breakthroughs. I mean, some of them based on just tiny pieces of wreckage.
So our mission today is to filter out some of that noise. We're going to focus on the actual physical evidence.
Exactly. The debris, the surprising science they used to analyze it, bioforensics, and then how these new sort of non-traditional technologies are driving a whole new search effort.
One that's slated for late 2025.
That's the one.
Okay, so to ground ourselves, let's just quickly revisit the timeline. We have to start there.
Of course. MH370 takes off just after midnight. The key moment, the one everyone talks about, is 01.21 Malaysian time.
That's when the transponder goes dark.
Right. It loses contact with secondary radar, just vanishes from civilian screens over the South China Sea. But the military was still tracking it.
On their primary radar for another hour.
And that's critical. That military tracking is what allowed investigators to confirm a deliberate course change.
Someone was flying the plane.
It turned west, flew directly across the Malay Peninsula, and then it left even the military's radar range at 02.22 near Penang Island.
And after that, all we have are those satellite pings.
Handshakes. The Inmarsat satellite unit on the plane kept responding to the network, which confirms it kept flying south deep into the Indian Ocean until at least 8 more early in the morning.
So that 7-hour gap, that creates this huge search arc.
A vast area of ocean.
And for years, there was no physical proof at all. Then, July 2015.
The right flaperon, found washed up on a Reunion Island.
This was the single most important piece of evidence.
Absolutely. French officials got a borescope in there, found serial numbers on internal parts. They confirmed its identity with absolute certainty.
But the real deep dive here isn't just the part itself. It's what was growing on it.
You're talking about bioforensics.
Using marine life as a kind of ocean detective.
Precisely. Bioforensics studies marine biofouling. It's just the natural process of organisms colonizing anything submerged in the water.
And it happens in a predictable order.
Very predictable. First, you get microalgae, that sort of slimy brown scuzz. Then things like bryozoans. And then finally, the famous lepus goose barnacles.
And the flaperon was covered in them.
It was heavily encrusted, which made it the perfect biological time capsule.
So how do you read that time capsule? I mean, how do biologists use barnacles to figure out where this thing came from?
Well, they realized they could track its journey and, crucially, estimate its time in the water based on the species and their size.
Has this been done before?
Oh, yeah. It was used to great effect tracking tsunami debris across the Pacific. By analyzing the mix of cold water versus warm water species, they could map its path.
Okay, so the barnacles are like little stopwatches. But how do you set the clock? How do you know how long it takes a barnacle to grow to a certain size out there in the middle of the Indian Ocean?
That is the crucial, innovative step. They needed a control.
A baseline.
Exactly. Researchers found a boat that had drifted for a known period of time in that same general latitude. They measured the barnacles on that boat and then compared them to the ones on the flaperon.
And what did they find?
The MH370 barnacles had a maximum capitulum length. That's the main shell, the head of 2.3 centimeters.
So 2.3 centimeters. You compare that to the control boat, and what's the verdict? How long was it at sea?
The analysis suggested the flaperon had been in the water for between 4 and 6 months.
Wait, hold on. 4 to 6 months. But it was found 16 months after the crash. That doesn't seem to add up.
At first glance, it looks like a contradiction. But the oceanographers ran the models, and they confirmed that 4 to 6 months of continuous flotation was perfectly consistent with the drift patterns.
If it started from the primary search area 16 months earlier.
Precisely. So the bioforensics actually provided this crucial validation. It confirmed the object could have traveled that distance from that origin point in that amount of time.
That seems this incredibly strong scientific validation for that southern Indian Ocean crash zone.
It was.
But this is MH370. So the story turns from a tragedy into a genuine riddle, because other pieces of debris told a completely different and conflicting story.
And this is where we hit that sharp contradiction. Late 2015, early 2016, 2 more pieces wash up off Mozambique.
The no-step piece from the stabilizer and another part of a flap-track fairing.
Both deemed almost certainly from MH370.
And the staggering difference is that these fragments, they were clean?
Practically clean. Relatively free of marine growth, as the report stated.
How is that even possible? If they were floating in the same ocean for 2 years, they should be covered in life.
It startled the experts. I mean, they were surprised there wasn't even growth inside the honeycomb structures, which is a perfect, protected little spot for things to settle.
So what did that imply?
One expert was quoted saying the minimal fouling meant the objects had probably been in the water for maybe a couple of weeks.
Weeks, not years.
Definitely not years.
So you have 2 pieces of the same plane found in the same region, implying time at sea that differs by years. How did scientists try to square that circle?
Well, they explored other explanations. Maybe the pieces rolled constantly on the surface, exposed to UV radiation, drying out, which would kill off marine life.
Or they beached somewhere?
Or they washed up on a beach, got scoured clean by sand and wind, and then washed back out just days before they were found.
But wouldn't that still leave something?
Yeah.
Some kind of evidence.
That is the counter-argument that makes this so difficult. Biologists pointed out that even if it dried out, you would almost certainly find something left behind. Microscopic shell fragments, or the little byssal threads mussels used to attach.
And there was.
Nothing. A complete and utter absence of any evidence of previous colonization. It's unsettling.
This is a huge point. For you listening, you really have to let this sink in. The lack of biofouling on the Mozambique debris suggests they entered the water, at the earliest, in late 2015.
Which directly and strongly contradicts the idea of a single crash event back in March 2014.
It forces a choice. Either the barnacle analysis on the flaperon was wrong,
or the debris was somehow separated and entered the water at radically different times, which that implies the aircraft did not crash all at once in 2014.
Given that enormous dilemma, it makes sense that the search has to continue. After the official efforts ended, Ocean Infinity came in, and now they're coming back.
That's right. The Malaysian government has approved a new search. Ocean Infinity is doing it on a no-fine, no-fee basis.
And it's highly targeted this time. A 15,000 square kilometer area, starting around the end of December 2025.
And what's fascinating is how they're defining that new area. It's being heavily influenced by these emerging, non-traditional surveillance systems.
Let's talk about WSPR, that's Weak Signal Propagation Reporter. This sounds like a massive leap from standard radar.
It is. WSPR is effectively a global passive radar system. It's amazing, really. It uses the signals from amateur radio enthusiasts.
Ham radio operators.
Exactly. They transmit these low-power test signals that bounce off the ionosphere, that charged layer in the upper atmosphere, to travel huge distances.
Okay, so how does that track a plane?
When an aircraft flies through the path of one of those signals, it creates a tiny disturbance, a little shadow in the data received on the other end.
So let me get this straight. By analyzing anomalies in a global network of ham radio signals, you can effectively map the flight path of a plane that was invisible to everything else.
That's a great way to put it, yes. And they've modeled these disturbances to refine the flight path, and critically, it's resulted in a new WSPR-defined search area.
And does it line up with other data?
It partly overlaps with the crash location identified by the ocean drift analysis, so it's another layer of technological validation for targeting that specific zone.
And at the same time, you have researchers analyzing underwater sound, the hydrophone data.
Right, at Cardiff University. And what they found, or rather what they didn't find, is just as compelling.
Look at.
The Cardiff team noted that the global hydrophone array picked up only a single, relatively weak signal around the right time and location.
And a plane crash shouldn't be weak.
They said it's implausible. A large aircraft hitting the ocean should create a massive, powerful pressure signature that these hydrophones would easily pick up.
So what does that imply? If the crash happened there, why was the signal so weak?
It implies either the location is wrong or the nature of the crash wasn't the kind of high-energy catastrophic impact we all imagine.
A controlled ditching, maybe?
It's a possibility. They're advocating for controlled explosion experiments to calibrate what a crash should sound like, which could force everyone to reassess the whole crash sequence.
Which brings us back inevitably to human intervention. The pilot theory.
We have to address it. The official Malaysian report confirmed the plane was manually turned around. The communication systems were likely deactivated by a person.
U.S. investigators believe someone in the cockpit reprogrammed the autopilot.
And that's where the technology and the theories intersect. If it was human intervention, Captain Zahori Shah was named the prime suspect. The key piece of evidence comes from the FBI's analysis of his home flight simulator.
What did they find?
A simulated route, flown just weeks before the actual flight, that closely matched the projected path deep into the Indian Ocean.
And the connection to the news search.
The bombshell is that this specific simulator flight path passes directly through the new, highly focused, WSPR-defined crash location.
Wow, so the news search area isn't just based on ocean drift, but on digital evidence pointing towards, well, planning.
It strengthens the argument for why that specific spot is so important.
So wrapping this all up, what have we learned? For you, the listener, what are the takeaways from this deep dive?
I think the first is the powerful role of bioforensics, using barnacle growth to essentially date the flaperon's time at sea, which gave crucial validation for that remote search area.
But then secondly, you have that validation being completely challenged by the contradictory evidence, the clean debris from Mozambique.
Which suggests those pieces entered the water years later, casting real doubt on the entire 2014 single crash timeline.
Or finally, after all this immense effort, we're now relying on these new technologies.
WSPR, passive radar, hydrophone analysis. They're the tools refining that last best guess, allowing Ocean Infinity to go in with a laser focus for the 2025 mission.
The final provocative thought for you to carry forward has to revolve around that central contradiction. If pieces of debris, all confirmed to be from MH370, show two dramatically different timelines for their time at sea, what does that imply about the aircraft's final moments?
Were the pieces somehow separated and released at different times?
Or did one piece travel a path so counter to everything we know about ocean currents that it requires us to rethink oceanic dynamics itself, suggesting a physical reality far stranger than our models can even account for? That contradiction, that is the key that still locks this entire mystery.